Okay, guys, here are 6 things to remember about transition. Okay, number 1, transition. During transition, you have adequate time to get to your next location. When the bell rings, you have enough time to get from where you're at to where you're going and get there in time without being late. There's plenty of time. Okay? Number 2, transition is not social time. Transition is not the time for you to interact with your peers in a social context. Okay, although you may pass your peers and you see your friends in the hallway, it's not the time to hang out and socialize. It's the time to move to your next place of learning. So don't get caught up in the trap of hanging out with your friends or falling into suggestions of your friends. It's not the time for that. It's the time to go to your next class. Number 3, it is not the time for lockers or bathroom use. Okay, if you go to the bathroom, that has to be something that you get permission from the teacher for. That's not something that should be done in between class. That's something that should be done during class. In between class, you want to move to your next location so we can get the hallways cleared so that everybody is safe and everybody's comfortable, everybody's secure, and we can keep this ball rolling. Okay? And it's not the time to use your lockers. Lockers are to be used at the designated locker times. Okay? Number 4. The hallway should already be clear by the time the second bell rings. That means don't wait around in the hallway waiting for the next bell to ring. No, by the time the second bell rings, the hallway should already be clear. I should be able to look as I'm in the hallway helping with transition and guiding people to where they have to be and moving people into the room. As soon as the bell rings, I should be able to look down the hallway and it should be clear. Okay? Number 5, if you are tardy to class for some reason, you have to be accountable for it. You have to bring a pass from wherever it is that you came from, the counselor, the principal, the security guard, another teacher, wherever it is that you came from. You have to bring a pass signed from that person so that the teacher knows where you're coming from and why you weren't there on time. If for some reason you were not being accountable, you were not being responsible, and you don't have a legitimate person to give you a pass, you weren't in a legitimate place where you have somebody to have written you a pass, well, you have to fill out a tardy slip. And when you come into the room, you don't interrupt the class. If you're tardy, you're tardy. The class has started, and the class should not have to be sidetracked or stopped because you come in the room late. So don't come in talking to people. Don't come in and walk across the room. You have to fill out a tardy slip. Don't come talking to people. Don't sit your stuff on your desk. Stay right by the door and fill out your tardy slip, which explains why you were late. That's where you explain why you were late. And so you have to be accountable for where you are and when you're there. And the tardy slip helps out in that regard. And you don't have to disrupt the class. You don't have to take up the time of the teacher. If it's something that needs to be, if a conversation has to be had regarding that, then that can be determined by the teacher when the teacher reads your tardy slip. Okay? And pointer number 6. During transition, out in the hallway is not the time to address concerns. It's not. The concern of the teachers in the hallway is to get the hallways cleared and to get people where they need to be so that we can continue this whole educational process. The transition time is not for the purpose of addressing your concerns. So if you have a pressing concern, if it's an emergency, then yes, it can be addressed. But if it's not like an absolute emergency that has to be handled right there at that moment, at that time, then it can wait until the class gets settled down and the class gets started. Once the class gets set in motion and you're not interfering with everybody else's education, you're not tying the teacher up, preventing him from addressing the rest of the class. Once you get to that point, then you can address your private concerns. Then you can address your issues. Then you can address what needs to be addressed. You can have whatever conversations need to be had, but you need to respect everybody else's educational process, and you need to respect the learning environment that we have established. So when it's time for transition, when the bell rings, you go straight to your next class and get into the class and get settled in and ready to rock and roll before the next bell rings. All right, so that's it for transitions. Let's keep it productive. Let's keep it going.